Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to the January 2022 installment of the Transportation Accessibility Advisory Committee. Pardon my beeps. That's my alarm telling me to take my tea bag out of my tea. Welcome to the January installment of the Transportation Accessibility Advisory Committee. I am happy to be here in a new year with all of you. Let's go ahead and start with, I'll do roll call, but I want to do it a little bit differently today because we do have a new member. Instead of me just going down the list and calling your name and seeing if you're here, I'll call your name, and I would like you to just do a quick introduction, just your name, what part of town you're in, and then if you so desire, toss in a just a little tidbit about something on TAAC that you are proud of, something that you've done, something that we've done. You don't have to, but by all means, do it if you'd like to. Okay, and one quick question is that phone number ending in 35, is that who is that? 651 phone number ending in 35?
That's me. It's Doug.
Doug, okay. Doug, so you are not a town member. I think I got everybody else. And just like in the past, if I don't call your name and I move on, please speak up. It means that I didn't see you join into the meeting. I will start. My name is David Fenley. I've been on TAAC for about seven years now. I've been chairing it for, I want to say 2.5, 3 years now. I am in downtown St. Paul, and something that I am proud of on TAAC. I'm actually proud of, I'll kind of do a broad pride here. I'm proud of all of you. I'm proud of all of you for really working hard to professionalize this committee, even through really tough online and a lack of interaction times that we've been in for the last 2 years now, I'd say. So I am proud of all you. I don't want to put anybody on the spot right off the bat, but if there's someone who does want to go first, and then I will start down the list, by all means, chime in. Okay, Diane, take it away.
Hi there. I am Diane Graham-Raff. I work for Trellis, which is the area agency on aging that serves the Metro. And so I am a staff member there and one of 2 of our representatives. And what I'm most proud of is kind of a twofold thing. One is being able to make sure that the voices of older adults are heard in this whole conversation about accessibility, but also then what I've learned from all of you and taking that into the diversity, inclusion, equity work of the aging services community, and constantly reminding them that if they're not including disability in their DEI work, that they're doing it wrong.
Thank you, Diane. Patty.
I'm Patty Thorson. Currently, I'm working with Diane, representing Trellis. I have represented AARP at one point, vice chair and chair, until I decided who could do it better. And I would say the thing I'm proudest of is the passion that everybody in this group has and the wealth of knowledge that everybody brings. So it's always an interesting group. And I'm currently located in Minnetonka. I lived in St. Paul for many years, but I'm just barely in Minnetonka now. Let's see.
Thank you, Patty. Sam.
I am Sam Jasmine. I am, what am I? Precinct A, I think. I have been on the TAAC for a while, and work in the disability community, and I think what I'm proud of is that there's a lot of things that branch off of this that you can, if you so choose to do, get involved with from the TAAC. That's it.
Thank you, Sam. Eric.
Excuse me, Eric Henriksen, representative of the Minnesota Council on Disability. I live in Hopkins. I'm a civil engineer. I actually work for a municipality here in the our metro area. One of the things I'm most proud of the group accomplishing since I've been involved, I think it's been about 3 years now, is specifically would be that priority seating letter that we sent and the action that kind of came after that. See, you know, something we produced, provided, and then seeing kind of progress being made, actions being taken.
Thank you very much, Eric. Patsy, I saw your hand up. Does that mean you want to go next, or do you have a question?
I'll go.
Take it away.
My name is Patsy Murphy. I live in Bloomington. I've been with TAAC for, I don't know, this is my second term, and very excited about being on it. I spend a lot of my time trying to do things to advocate for others. So this is just one of those avenues that I do that with. With TAAC, I would probably say just excited about the strong will that everybody has to work hard to get things done. People work together and get all that accomplished, and I think that is terrific. Continue working down that great road, everyone.
Thank you, Patsy. Claudia?
Claudia Fugly from Robbinsdale. Everybody said the same thing I would have said, so I'm not going to repeat it. Thank you.
You can repeat it if you want. I think that's okay.
No, that's all right.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Claudia. Daryl.
Daryl Paulson. I'm from Maplewood. I've been on TAAC for probably nearly 20 years. I was appointed during the Venture administration. The thing that I like most, or the thing that I'm most proud of about TAAC and its accomplishments rather over the last couple decades, is its unique ability to engage a particular segment of the population that is the ridership, but yet the way that staff engages with us and the way that we're continuing to have opportunities to engage with staff, I think that is a unique relationship that we continue to foster. And I think at least over the last, I would say over the last 5 or 6 years or so, I see staff coming to us on more unique opportunities and more unique partnerships, and I think that's a good thing, and I think it gives us an opportunity to hone our skills and to provide our unique perspectives on how transportation or this particular piece of transportation fits into our lives. I mean, because I, as a permanently disabled individual that primarily uses public transportation, I mean, it's definitely something we all need to be proud of. And each one of you have impacted my life and made me want to stay on this committee and be involved. So thank you for giving me that opportunity.
Very well said, Daryl, as usual. Richard.
Hi, I'm Richard Rowan. I represent AARP on TAAC. And just coincidentally, I also have a son who is a member of the disability community. And I'm just proud of trying to represent the interests of AARP and also of the diversity of thought and contributions we have from the members of this committee.
And thank you very much, Richard. Carrie.
Hi, I'm Carrie. I represent Precinct G. I live in the north end of St. Paul. And I've been on the committee for I'm not even sure how long. It's been a while. That's about it.
Thank you very much, Carrie. All right, now I will go to our new member, Rachel. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You don't have to go into detail if you don't want to.
Thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Rachel Garrity and I am proud to be a new member of the TAAC. I am in Egan, which is District H. So just really looking forward to learning more about everything that the TAAC is doing and contributing to advancing its mission. Thank you everyone.
Thank you, Rachel, and congratulations for your appointment. And we very much look forward to working with you. Okay, did I miss anyone? I don't think I did, but if I did, please speak up.
Dave, for introduction's sake, do you want the staff liaisons to introduce themselves?
You know, I was just thinking about doing that at the end of the meeting, but since you brought it up right now, I think that's a great idea. That's Doug, Metro Transit staff. But yes, Andy, that's you read my mind. I was just about to suggest that. You want to start us off, Andy, and then I'll go to Allison.
Sure. I'm Andy Stresik. We met virtually earlier, but welcome to the TAAC. I manage customer service for Metro Mobility and have on and off been a staff liaison for the TAAC for the last 15 years. I think if I live in St. Paul in a more conventional time, I would be working in the downtown St. Paul Met Council office on Robert Street. And I think if I had to pick one activity of the TAACs that I am most proud of, it would be the implementation of the Kelderman air ride suspension systems on the Metro Mobility vehicles to make for a little bit smoother ride on the Metro Mobility buses.
Thank you, Andy. Allison, please introduce yourself, and then I'll go to Guthrie.
All right. Well, my name is Allison. I've been working with the TAAC since August of 2000, and it's grown a lot since I started, and it's going well.
Thank you, Allison. Guthrie.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is Guthrie Byard. I am the Metropolitan Council's ADA and Title VI Administrator and liaison to the TAAC for the Office of Equal Opportunity. He, him, his pronouns. I've been with the council for about 3 years now and a liaison for, I don't know, about a year or a little less than a year. I think just in general, I appreciate attending each meeting and hearing about all of the great work that is occurring and just seeing that TAAC is becoming more of a committee that a lot of projects go to earlier on, and that there's more opportunity for TAAC to actually provide more meaningful engagement and feedback that does really impact a lot of the projects that we do here at the council. So thank you.
Thank you, Guthrie. I think that those are all of our official staff liaisons. I know there are some other staff who regularly attend. Um, but I will skip that right now in lieu of time here. And let's get started on our agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you very much for the approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Diane seconds. Okay, I will go through the list of folks here. And if you approve the agenda, say yes or aye, and if not, say no. Claudia?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Patty?
Yes.
Sam?
Yes.
Eric? I will come back. Daryl?
Aye.
Richard?
Yes.
Rachel?
Yes.
Patsy?
Yes.
Carrie?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well.
For the
Unanimous.
record, this is Eric. Aye.
So with Eric, it is unanimous. Thank you all very much. I would now entertain a motion to approve December's minutes. If there are no
So moved.
changes. Thank you, Daryl, for the move. Is there a second?
Second.
Sam, thank you. All right, roll call again. Claudia,
Yes.
Diane,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
Sam,
Yes.
Eric,
Aye.
Daryl,
Aye.
Richard,
Yes.
Rachel,
Yes.
Patsy,
Yes.
Gary,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well. That passes unanimously. Thank you all for sticking with us through the more logistical side of things. Let's dive right in here. We have Bree Grand who's going to give us an update on the Aira pilot. For those who aren't familiar with Aira, Aira is it's a service that's provided to folks who are blind. Currently, at the moment, only folks who are blind, if memory serves me correctly. It's essentially like guidance through your phone camera. You call in to a person who will then access the camera on your phone, and then they will essentially tell you everything that's in the field of view, and work with you in getting around. But Bree, if you want to maybe give a little bit of background too as well. I know that was real basic, but that would be fantastic for folks of us who are new, because I know this is at least your second time visiting us, maybe even your third time visiting us. Bree, so take it away, please.
All right. Yeah, thank you, Chair Fenley and committee members. Just to introduce myself, my name is Bree Grand. I'm a project manager in the Transit Information Department at Metro Transit. I use she, her pronouns. I have brown hair that is in a bun today, and I'm wearing a red sweater and glasses, and coming to you from my spare bedroom / makeshift office in South Minneapolis. As noted, I'm here today to give an update about our ongoing project to pilot or test the Aira app. As Chair Fenley noted, that Aira is a live stream wayfinding and navigation app for blind and low vision customers. We started the pilot period in June of last year, and so I wanted to give kind of a little background about the project itself and a status update. Next slide, please. So just to provide a little background, the reason that we're testing this technology is that we know that lack of wayfinding is already a customer pain point and can particularly impact blind or low vision transit customers. There can be safety challenges, particularly when there are unexpected things like construction or poor weather, and it can be difficult to identify certain boarding locations, especially at transit centers with many stops or locations where a stop is in the middle of a block, for example. Our Transit Information Center representatives do provide live assistance by phone to blind and low vision customers, and they use tools like Google Street View to help with that, but they can't video chat with them or actually see the current street conditions. So we know that there are still some gaps in the capabilities that we have to provide accessible and reliable information for blind and low vision customers. Next slide, please. So because of this need, this gap that we have been piloting the use of the Aira app service. Customers can access Aira through an app on their mobile device, which, as Chair Fedley mentioned, uses their camera and the speaker on their mobile device and actually connects them to an Aira agent who is trained in navigation assistance and who can see their surroundings and provide them with guidance and other assistance as needed. Aira has been used by a few other Twin Cities agencies like the MSP Airport and the City of Minneapolis, and has been tested by some other agencies such as the Boston area's transit agency. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we started the Aira Pilot in June of last year, and it will continue until the end of March of this year. During that pilot period, the way we have it set up is that any customer who's interested can use Aira assistance for free when they're using it for their Metro Transit trip by selecting our free offer within the app or telling the Aira agent when they call Aira from the app that they want to use Metro Transit's free offer. So this includes door-to-door service. And we also have some geofencing set up at our larger facilities like the Mall of America transit station. So if customers already happen to have the Aira app, they also may get push notifications about our free offer when they're at those locations. Next slide, please. When the pilot ends at the end of March, what we'll be doing is soliciting feedback from customers who used the service. We held some focus groups before the beginning of the pilot to get feedback about current navigation challenges, and we'll be holding follow-up focus groups in April. We also plan to create and send out an electronic survey to various community groups that we've been working with to share with their members and customers for any additional feedback from those who may have used the service but may not have participated in the focus groups. Next slide, please. After we gain that feedback, we'll be developing an evaluation report in April based on the user feedback and the usage of the service so that we can provide a recommendation about whether to continue with it longer term. Next slide, please. So as mentioned, since the beginning of the pilot and even before the pilot started last year, we've been working with various community groups to try to get the word out about the free offer and gain usage so that we can get that feedback that we desire. So we've been using various tactics such as social media, electronic newsletters, media stories such as in the Star Tribune, working with KFAI's Disability in Progress show, communicating with organizations like Vision Loss Resources, State Services for the Blind, Metro Mobility, etc., to help spread the word about this. Next slide, please. So it was difficult for us to have an idea about how many people may use this service. We don't have extremely robust information about or statistics about how many customers who identify as blind or low vision frequently use Metro Transit service. And so we weren't exactly sure how much to expect as far as usage. The pandemic was, of course, another factor. But so far, the average number of sessions per month has been about 30. And we've had about 20 unique individuals using the service. So as mentioned, we know that people are still in flux with their potential transit use because of the pandemic, and there are a number of factors that may have limited some of the use of this service, but we're still hoping for as much feedback as possible. So want to continue spreading the word and letting people know about the free offer over the next few months until the pilot ends at the end of March. Next slide, please. So that concludes my update on the project. I wanted to leave some time for any questions.
Thank you very much, Bree. I appreciate that. I have a couple questions, but I would like to open it up to TAAC members, other TAAC members first. I'm sure some of you do. I see Daryl's hand.
I'm Jasmine.
And then, okay, so we'll go to Daryl and then I'll go to you, Sam, okay?
Go to Sam first and then come back to me.
Sounds good, Vice Chair. I'll abide by your wishes. Go ahead, Sam.
Well, if she might ask my question.
Well, thank you, Bree, for giving that update. And my question, I think, is, you know, I've been kind of on this committee, and I think I asked it there, but I don't think there was a for sure answer. And so I want to re-ask that. It was my understanding that if there was, quote, enough usage, that this might be something that would be put in the works, that it would stay possibly. So my question is, did I misunderstand that? And my second question would be, if that's the case, how much usage would it take to imply or to apply something like that?
Sure. Yep, that's a great question. We have a contract, Metro Transit has a contract with Aira, and the way it's structured is that we have this pilot or testing period, and then we do have the option to extend based on our evaluation recommendations. We did not set a specific threshold for usage for a multitude of reasons. One, of course, being the pandemic and the unknowns related to that. Another being the fact that we unfortunately just don't have great data about the average use of Metro Transit by customers who identify as being blind or low vision. So it's hard for us to set a baseline to compare to. So we will want to take the usage into consideration, but the greatest input into our evaluation will be the user feedback from those who use the service and provide us with information about whether or not they felt that it helped improve their feeling of safety, reduce barriers to using Metro Transit, et cetera.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Daryl.
Those were great questions, Sam. But my question was more importantly, does this apply to Metro Mobility as well? And if it does or does not, can it at some point? And then also, as far as I know, there are many low vision transit users that don't know about this, and they did not know about it. I know we have members of our own committee that were instrumental in using this pilot at the airport and so forth. And so I know the value, and I see the importance of this, and so I can see why we want to extend it. But as far as getting the numbers and getting the raw data, I think it needs to be more widely publicized at least. And it maybe it was publicized, but maybe it was not at the right time or not in the right location.
This is Ken. I have
Sure.
a question.
Thank you, Daryl. Bree, did you want to respond?
Yeah, I was going to respond to the question about Metro Mobility. So the contract with Aira service is with Metro Transit specifically. We have been working with Metro Mobility to help get the word out to Metro Mobility customers about this, because we do know that many Metro Mobility customers have conditional eligibility, and we're hoping that providing Aira as a supplemental service for Metro Transit use might make some of those customers more willing or feel more comfortable or safe using fixed transit service.
Yeah.
And then to address the comments related to getting the word out, it's always challenging to know what the best avenue is to do that. We have worked with a number of community groups and local media, social media, that sort of thing. But I have heard
Losing
totally
audio.
from been able to use or test out the service simply because they haven't been. So, are you losing me?
Yeah, you were a little choppy there, but I think I got the
Here we
gist
go.
of it. And
I'll take that into consideration.
yeah.
Yeah, and this is Ken.
Thank
Sorry
you.
about that.
Go ahead, Ken, and then I'll go to Patty.
Sure.
Great, thank you.
It was very difficult to understand what you said previously, and I think you may have addressed this, but I want to just double check. I know I have personally seen advertisement in Metro Transit correspondence newsletters. I've also seen this mentioned in individual email notifications that have gone out to mailing lists. I've personally put this on the blind list with the blind community, and it's appeared in articles in our blind newsletter. I have not seen it, however, in Access Press, and I think it would be a valuable tool to use if somebody could do a guest short little article and send it to Access Press. They're always looking for content that's appropriate for the disability community, and that's a wide audience. So that's one thing I would just like to suggest, but I would also like to echo what Sam identified. Under normal circumstance, I would use the bus and the train daily for my daily commute to work. But because we're in COVID, we're on remote work reporting right now, and we're going to continue that for the foreseeable future. A lot of state agencies that employ individuals with disabilities are not working. So I personally am not using public transportation. I'm not going out publicly very much at all because of COVID. And I know that there are many, many people in the blind community that are following that same process. So the numbers right now, it's unfortunate that it's hit at this particular moment that we're evaluating the program based on usage when most of us are not using a normal process that we would normally use. But based on the airport experience, and I've been involved with Aira at the airport since its inception, the philosophy that we've taken at the airport to determine the value of offering Aira for patrons of the airport is that if it's used even a little bit, it's of value to somebody that needs it. So I would encourage during your evaluation that you really consider that as well. I know I have used it when we had less COVID in the environment. I have used it to experience it using Aira, but I would just suggest that that consideration be given extra weight because we're not in a normal situation. There are a lot of people that are not doing what they might normally otherwise do.
Yes, thanks, Ken. Yes, I have gotten the same feedback from others about the pandemic situation and lack of use of transit because of that. And so, agreed. Yes, we will be giving more weight to user feedback from the focus groups and survey from those who have been able to use the Aira service than simple numbers of usage.
Excellent, thank you.
This is David. Ken, would it be safe to say that the 30 times a month that it's being used right now would be you alone on transit?
Absolutely.
I figured as much. under normal circumstances, non-pandemic thing.
Yeah, and I also know from having conversations with other blind individuals in my circles that people are specifically not doing what they would normally do. They're not going out for fear of being exposed to COVID. And even in our early time before COVID, when the city of Minneapolis identified Aira as an option for the Nicollet Mall area, that the usage that we found from the city of Minneapolis usage of Aira, it was mostly people accessing transportation along Nicollet Mall. It wasn't people going shopping on Nicollet Mall. It was people using transit on the mall, and they would key into the Aira app to be able to access information about the transit situation. So I know it's used by the community. I know it's valued, and I don't want that to get lost.
Jasmine.
Thank you very much, Ken. Sam, we'll go to you, and then I'll go to Patty, and then Andy.
Thank you. I just want to echo Ken's words that I too am one of those that would often take transit from, Plymouth to Minneapolis, and I'm not anymore because of all the pandemic. So I would agree that there's a lot of people that I know that are not doing the same thing, and certainly would hope two things, that even if it meant suspending it for a bit, that and it would be picked up again, or extending it well into the summer, because I think that is what's going to give you your best numbers. My other questions would be, I guess, could you remind me of how you're getting your data, short of, how you know that it's a visually impaired person? And lastly, it's probably time then, if you're going to extend this further, you come on the show again. Anyway, I'll leave that and let you comment.
Thank you, Sam. Yes, regarding the data that we're getting about the usage, those are all reports that are coming from Aira. So they're logging people who call in and are using the free access offer that Metro Transit has within the app. And I agree. I think that, both you and Ken said it well. There are a lot of people who are not using transit right now because of the pandemic. And so we'll be exploring different options because we're trying to definitely take that into consideration. And to your last comment, I would be happy to come back on anytime.
Thank you again, Sam. Patty.
I'm not sure now that my comment is relevant, or maybe too far ahead. I was thinking about the currency of the data, but I think that's a wrong assumption on my part. I'm thinking of, I think on Metro Mobility, the inaccuracies in data, but this is real time. I should just eliminate, and I should just take back what I didn't communicate.
Consider it taken back, Patty. It's Andy, go ahead.
Hi, I'm just seeking clarification as we, notify our customers. I want to make sure we're not working at cross purposes. Metro Mobility staff has been operating under the assumption that while this was primarily designed for members of the blind or low vision communities, that other folks would be eligible for using it based on other disabilities that may impact the ability to navigate independently. Is that an erroneous assumption?
It is not erroneous. That's a good clarification. Thank you, Andy. Because the Aira service was primarily created for assisting blind or low vision customers, that's what we have been primarily communicating. But yes, anybody who wants to try the app for any purpose that they think it might be useful in assisting them, it is free to all customers during the pilot.
Thank you, Bree, for that. And it's probably me that spread that misinformation, Andy, because I was under the impression that Aira, as a policy, only provided their services to blind and low vision folks. But I'm glad that's changed because I heard that they were talking about that. Did you want to say something again, Andy? Or did you just?
I think I meant to lower my hand and re-raised it, I think, but consider it down.
Perfect.
I have a question.
All right.
It's Patsy.
Go ahead, Patsy, and then we will move
Okay.
on to the next agenda item. But I'm okay with going over a little bit here because I think this is a good discussion. So go ahead, Patsy.
Well, I'm sitting here listening to this, and I'm kind of like going, what? I didn't want to be the one to be the naive person, but could somebody explain a little bit better what this really is and how this works out? Especially like when Andy was making this comment, I was thinking of myself, and like, I do not use the bus service because of my memory situation, or I can get somewhere and go, where am I at? Why am I here? So if somebody could explain for me, that would be great.
This is Ken.
Sure. Go ahead, Ken.
Okay, and I have another point to make, so I thought maybe I could do both, and then you could fill in with what I'm omitting or leaving out. But originally, the Aira program was designed and created primarily for blind and visually impaired individuals. Because what it is, it's an app on your smartphone that you can immediately connect to a live individual that has access to your camera video and can see what you're pointing your camera to describe what's there. So for a blind person, it's perfect because we can't see what's there. But a live person looking through my camera as I'm listening to that person can identify and describe to me what they're seeing and can help me navigate the environment safer. And it's the same for, whoever uses it. But I do know that when Aira was created, it was specifically limited to individuals that use a white cane or have a guide dog. So if the visual assistant that's there doesn't see a white cane or a dog and gets the impression you're not a blind or visually impaired individual, they would stop providing the service. Um, it, it, Especially when we went to this free 5 minutes program. So anybody can use it for 5 minutes for free. You don't have to be a subscriber, but to generally use Aira, it costs. So the individual buys a subscription, and then they have so many minutes to use their virtual assistant each month. But with this Metro Transit program, entities have the ability to purchase a block of minutes that individuals can use as a reasonable accommodation. So for example, at the Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport, the Aira service is provided on the airport premises. So anywhere on the airport service, you can dial into Aira and it doesn't cost the individual anything. The airport picks up the cost just like Metro Transit is doing on rides on the transit system. So there are also corporations that purchase minutes. So Target is one of those, Walgreens is another one, Starbucks is another company. So I could go to any one of those, a Target, a Walgreens, or a Starbucks, and use Aira for free because those companies are paying for the minutes for accessibility to improve accessibility for their customers. So I do know that when we started this transit program, it was identified for anybody that needed assistance, needed a second pair of eyes for whatever reason. So Patty, the idea that you might need it to help your memory is a perfect example of a non-visual need for something that could be quite helpful. So in other words, when you started your trip, you could identify that you have a memory issue and here's what you want to do, get that clearly understood so the visual person understands, and then they can assist you with that. And if you get stuck somewhere and you're confused, they can help reorient you. So I think that's a great example of a different kind of use. And I just want to make sure that that it's really clear to the people that perform the visual services at Aira that that's also clarified with them that in this program we are allowing other than visually impaired individuals to use this program. I don't know if that's not even necessary at this point, that the program's now evolved to just include that, or if that's necessary, but I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you, Ken. That's a perfect synopsis. This is Bree. Yes, the Aira agents should be providing the service to any Metro Transit customer who calls in for any way that it can assist them. So if there are any concerns that come up, please feel free to reach out to me about that. Chair Fenley has my contact information. Happy to share it with anyone here as well. I want to make sure that everything is going smoothly for the people trying to use the service.
Thank you, Bree. Last word, Patty?
Yeah. I think if Heidi was here now, I agree with Andy, and I'm not articulating it right now, but thought processes that are, I was going to say messed up, impaired, whatever. You can lose. I've had brain damage since birth, and you lose a sense of dimension, or not lose it, you either lose it or didn't have it to begin with, to be able to establish relationships of objects in your surroundings, or as I think Heidi, another member of this committee, has talked about, if things aren't consistently labeled out in the world, if green doesn't always mean go, you know, you can be in trouble if you've got thought processing issues. But so I wonder if we need to be making more marketing. I don't want a pejorative sense of marketing, but in the best sense of the word, a marketing of it so that people that do have the need for it, but don't identify themselves. I tend to forget I have brain damage. You know, if I introduce so I don't, I'm not expressing myself well today, but I'll shut up.
This is David. Patty, your point, it's a very good point, and I think it's designed and is very much more straightforward when used by blind folks or folks with low vision. The potential or the possibility becomes a little more unique and individualized when you talk about, you know, brain injury community or the developmentally disabled community or the intellectually disabled community. And I think the reason why Aira began it as just blind is because they didn't have the cultural awareness necessarily of those other communities and how to do it. But I think that it's good that it's broadened out. And your point is spot on, Patty. How do we market that to folks who may think, oh, this is just for folks who are who are blind or have low vision? But it's a good point. We are going to move on. Thank you very much, Bree, for the presentation, and also members for your robust discussion. Let's bring up Leslie Kandaras to give us kind of an overview here of how structure within Metro Transit might be changing because of federal legislation. Take it away.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chair Fenley, and good afternoon. My name is Leslie Kandaras. I work at Metro Transit as the Chief of Staff. I use she, her pronouns. I see that there's an image of our org chart up, and I'll talk about organizational changes in a moment, but I'm going to start by just providing a bit of an overview on the federal Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. I was asked to say a few words about that legislation and the impact it's going to have on Metro Transit. And I'll just say at the onset that we are still waiting for a lot more information from the federal government about what the implications will be. But I'll share with you what we know and certainly offer to come back as we learn more. But just for some context, back in November, President Biden signed into law the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. Its formal name is the Infrastructure Investments and Job Act, sometimes abbreviated IIJA. So you might see it referred to as different names, but this is the 5-year package that authorizes about $1.2 trillion of infrastructure spending nationwide. And that includes infrastructure spending for transportation needs, water treatment, broadband access, and other priorities. So it's a very large, expansive investment in our nation's infrastructure. Specifically for transit, the law authorizes up to $108 billion for public transit nationwide during that 5-year period. As of now, we anticipate that the state of Minnesota, so the state entirely, not specifically the Met Council services, but we believe we stand to receive about $800 million for transit as part of this 5-year authorization package. But as I mentioned, at this point in time, we are still waiting for further information from the Federal Transit Administration about how that money is going to be allocated. We believe it's going to be a mixture of formula grants, in line with previous authorization acts for public transportation, and that there will also be some additional funding for competitive opportunities where we can apply for grants for federal programs that allow us to enhance our service. So we continue to closely monitor information that's coming out from the Federal Transit Administration. But at this point, we know that the bill is really focused on 4 main priorities. The first is safety, and this means enhancing state safety oversight programs by strengthening rail inspection practices to protect transit workers and riders from injuries and ensure safe access to transit. The second priority in the bill is modernization, which refers to reducing the state of good repair investment backlog by repairing and upgrading aging transit infrastructure and by modernizing bus and rail fleets. The third priority in the bill revolves around climate. And there's new funding in the authorized by the legislation to replace thousands of transit buses nationwide with cleaner vehicles. And the fourth priority guiding the investments in this legislation is equity, improving transit service for communities that have historically had more limited access to transit. So again, at this point, we don't know how much money Metro Transit will receive. We don't have the details about the formulas or the rules around that funding, but we are very eager to learn more about it, and we'll continue to monitor it as the Federal Transit Administration prepares to disperse that funding. And again, as I mentioned at the beginning, certainly if this committee is interested in receiving updates as we receive updates, I would be more than happy to come back as we learn more and can speak with more specificity about what this new federal investment will mean for Metro Transit. Now, the second topic I was asked to speak about was organizational changes. It's at this point in time, because we don't know much about the federal bill, I don't have any updates on what that may mean in terms of our organizational plans. Certainly, we intend to continue to use additional resources in accordance with existing transportation policy that's established by the Metropolitan Council. But I can, if it's of interest, speak to a couple organizational updates in 2020. But before I do that, I also just want to note, since on the agenda it's listed as Metro Transit staffing, really our probably #1 priority when it comes to staffing right now is hiring more operators. You might have heard that in December, when we did our usual quarterly service change, we actually had to reduce service because we didn't have enough operators to cover the work we want to be able to provide right now. And so while we made that change in December, we still are looking to hire more operators so we can maintain and build back our service levels. And of course, with the rise of COVID cases, that's just further compounding the challenges of making sure we have a healthy, available workforce to provide the service we've committed to providing to the region. So I would just, it's not really what I was asked to speak about today, but didn't want to miss the opportunity just to really note that that's our top staffing priority right now, is recruiting more people to operate our vehicles so we can provide the service that we're committed to providing. That being said, in 2020, we did make, or excuse me, 2021, I'm getting my years confused. It's now 2022. So last year, mid-year, there were 2 significant additions to Metro Transit staff. One was the creation of a new deputy general manager position over our capital programs. And Nick Thompson, who's a former director of MTS, was hired into that role and started at the end of June 2021. And under his portfolio now is Metro Transit Engineering and Facilities, the Light Rail Project Office, the Bus Rapid Transit Projects, asset management, and transit-oriented development. And so this was a new role to really bring together the various capital disciplines at Metro Transit to ensure we have a coherent, strategic approach to developing, building, and maintaining capital assets here at Metro Transit. So the hiring of Nick Thompson into that new role is a significant organizational change, and certainly positions us well as we look to learn more about what the federal infrastructure legislation will mean for us and what additional opportunities to modernize and expand our system that funding may bring. Another organizational change in mid-2021 was the hiring of a senior manager for transit equity. Metro Transit has had dedicated staff focused on equity since about 2015, I want to say. But in 2021, we reclassified that position to make it a more senior level role. And we hired Selena Martina to fill that senior manager position. So Selena started at the end of June as well. And she manages 2 additional full-time staff that comprise our equity and inclusion unit. You know, if you haven't had Selena and her team here to present, that may be of interest of this committee too, and I'm certain they'd be interested in that. But equity is a really significant core element to Metro Transit's strategic plan. So a lot of the work that Selena is leading right now is really fleshing out that strategic direction around equity and inclusion. So that may be of interest to this committee. And then finally, I'll just mention, we're actually undergoing another staffing transition that affects our customer relations and community engagement work. In December, Sam O'Connell, who was the Metro Transit Assistant Director for Community Affairs, took a new position with the council as Director for Community Relations based out of Regional Administration at the Metropolitan Council, working closely with Chair Zelli. And by leaving her role at Metro Transit means we have a vacancy here to find a new person to oversee our customer relations and outreach and engagement department. So in the coming weeks, we'll be looking to post that position and hire somebody to really lead that work here at Metro Transit as well. So those are the updates I had for you, but certainly I'm looking forward to any questions you have. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Leslie. Does anybody have any questions? It was a very broad overview, but any members, questions, concerns? It's really nice to get us told about this, you know, beforehand. So when things do start coming down the pipeline, whether it's money or new hires or policy changes, we can be informed as to those decisions being made. So it's nice to have this in our brains early on. Anybody have any thoughts, questions? It's not a requirement. Richard.
This is Richard. Yes, I was just going to say, you already mentioned it, but you know, this committee would be a way to reach out to various communities that are affected and provide contacts that would allow you to research needs. And anyway, I'm just mentioning that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
I can find unmute myself. I also found the organizational chart to be really helpful because I've worked with Guthrie on accessibility, as has Ken, on making the whole Met Council more accessible and usable. And for me, being able to understand who communicates with whom within the organization is really good. And I also think that that same information regarding metro mobility would be very helpful to see how do those 2 units communicate. It's one thing of what services are we providing, but what staff people are connecting with each other to make that happen and receiving feedback to make the things that we want happen. I'm probably getting too far into the weeds, but I found that chart to be very helpful. So
thank you.
Thank you, Patty. I think that's a very good point about linking the 2 org charts, maybe if that's what you're saying. Any other TAAC members have any questions or comments? Patty, again, go ahead, and then Daryl.
I just wanted to say it's both the individual one of Metro Mobility and then either being able to link those together, you know, we as readers, or, but I think having the two separate and then being able to digest it a little bit and then seeing how the two work together. I'll stop.
Go ahead, Daryl.
And I just wanted to thank you, Leslie. I think the information that you provided to us is valuable. I also think the organizational chart that you shared with us also shows us the complexity and the staff intricacies of how an organization such as the Met Council or Metro Transit rather, how they have to operate. So I do hope that you come back on a regular basis. I'm going to talk to Chair Finley after this and see that you come back as well. And I think you know, I think you'll get the input out of this committee and support that you desire if we come back and try to hone in on some of the information that I think you have, and I think this committee could either use or maybe even validate or invalidate at times. So thank you. And
Thank
there
you.
was one other point, but I don't know what it was at this point. Oh, it was about making sure that Sonia comes back, right? That she's the equity
Oh,
person, yeah, right? And making sure that she comes back with you. Maybe you guys could tag team and do a little presentation for us. So I think you were spot on when you suggested those things. So thank you.
yeah. Chair Fenley, Vice Chair Paulson, thank you for those comments. And yes, I really like the idea of bringing she's not all that new anymore, but our newest senior manager for equity, Selena Martina, to one of these meetings. And yeah, I love the idea of us kind of tag teaming some updates. And I believe that I'm at least tentatively penciled to come back in February to give you an update on the police work group that we spoke about back in November too. So obviously at the discretion of the chair, but that's, I know, another topic of interest to this group, and certainly want to make sure we keep you abreast of what's happening there as well. So
You bet. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you, Daryl and Leslie. If there are no other comments from TAAC members, we will move on to Brooke.
right,
Bordson giving
you.
us thank you very much for coming, Leslie, giving us a legislative update, which from what I understand will be broad as well, because there is still not full information from the Capitol, even though they're starting up here in just a couple weeks.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me back. Again, my name is Brooke Bordson, and I am a Government Affairs Liaison with the Council's Government Affairs Department. In sort of putting some things together for today, I realized that the 2021 session really dragged out until, you know, literally the last day before there would be a shutdown. So I don't think I was here for a final closeout on the 2021 session in the fall. So I'm just going to hit a couple points that are important that did pass in the 2021 session. And because legislative sessions are a 2-year biennium, 2021 really feeds into 2022 in that sense. So 2021 was the budget year. As I mentioned, a special session was required to pass all of the bills that were agreed to. You know, it took several months to get those bills agreed to and ultimately passed and sent to the governor's desk. And for transit, for metro area transit, the final results on the budget were continued base level funding for metro mobility and our transit system operations. we received a $57.5 million one-time appropriation specifically for arterial bus rapid transit, ABRT. And those funds will advance the E and F lines. We also received authorization for regional transit capital bonds. Those are bonds that we request authorization for every 2 years and are used to for small capital expenditures, and that's primarily fleet replacement. So it's something we ask for every 2 years. It doesn't sound very exciting, but those are critically important for not only Metro Transit fleet replacement, but Metro Mobility and Transit Link as well. And then saving the best for last, in the final transportation budget agreement, Metro Mobility was established as a forecasted program in the state budget. So, and that's effective starting with the state fiscal year 2026 budget. So what that means is that state budget forecasts will incorporate a general fund obligation for the cost of Metro Mobility. And then the base funding amount will be set for the amount necessary to maintain service levels for Metro Mobility. And that's hugely important because that means every 2 years, we're not going to have to go in and fight to get the right level of funding for Metro Mobility, which is a program that we know gets more and more expensive each year, and is a mandated service both at the federal and state level. So the amount that's provided for Metro Mobility in the state budget is not going to be just a static number anymore. It's going to reflect, you know, a thoughtful forecast about what the actual needs are going to be based on expense and ridership. So that was, you know, again, it doesn't really sound exciting on its face, but it's really great news for Metro Mobility. So I just wanted to make sure everybody had heard about that because that's one of those things that happened later in the summer during the special session. So then moving on to 2022, the even numbered years are traditionally bonding years. So the budget's been enacted. They technically don't need to do a budget bill because the government is funded for the 2-year cycle. But there usually is some sort of supplemental budget that happens in the second year of a session, and then a bonding bill. So before I get into the bonding bill, might remember last year I spoke a few times about an initiative that we were trying to advance that would allow the Met Council and Metro Transit to establish an administrative citation programs for fare enforcement. And that would replace the current criminal system where a police officer has to write you a criminal citation. This would let us have an administrative program where we didn't need sworn personnel to inspect fares, and we could handle those violations internally rather than that becoming a criminal court matter. That did not pass in 2021. We had a lot of good discussions about it. We got a lot more people to understand the proposal and why it makes sense. So it's still going to be in play in 2022. The bill is still alive, and we're hoping that, you know, this year we can get that final push to get that authorization. So that's something that's going to be continuing in 2022. We will also have a bonding request for our busway program, and hope that that gets included in the governor's bonding bill. We won't know that until mid-January. That's when the governor is planning to release his bonding proposal. So if not next week, then probably early in the week after that. For supplemental budget recommendations from the governor, we're not expecting those until the end of January. You may have seen it was big news because it's a big number, but the Minnesota Management and Budget, who produces the state budget forecast, projected a surplus of $7.7 billion in their November forecast. That's going to be updated in February, and that February number is the one that legislators use if and when they do agree to a supplemental budget package. So we'll see how that changes, but in any case, it looks like they are going to have a pretty significant amount of money on the table for a potential supplemental budget. Everything is a little bit more complicated this year given the federal legislation that passed. Obviously, the infrastructure bill, which you just heard a bit about, I believe. A consideration is if any of those programs require matching funds, how do we provide for that on the state level? There are also funds remaining from the American Rescue Plan package that Congress passed last year. You may also hear that referred to as the Arp Bill. So there's a lot of moving pieces. It's always complicated to put a supplemental budget together. It's especially complicated this year, given those other factors. There's obviously, we're still dealing with the pandemic, which is going to impact the needs for funding in certain programs. We have borrowed, I believe the state of Minnesota has about $1 billion to pay back to the federal government for the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund. So again, there's just a lot of moving pieces that make it hard to come up with one document explaining your budget proposal, but we are still going to see that at the end of January. And then I'll just note at the end, the House has already announced that House activity is going to remain mostly remote, which is what they did last year. So if any of you participated or watched any Zoom committee hearings, I hope you got that down because we're going to be going back to that for the House. The Senate has not said exactly what their plan is going to be, so that is to be determined. And then the last thing I wanted to note is that this is an election year. It's a super election year because the governor will be up for re-election, every member of the House and every member of the Senate. So it's going to be a full board election, and that always makes the legislative session a bit trickier. I'll just leave it at trickier. So that's kind of the high-level overview of what we're looking forward to starting on January 31st when legislators come back, or don't come back physically but get their Zoom back on. And I'm happy to try to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much, Brooke. This is David. I'm already seeing some hands up. I'm going to just make a quick comment here, and then I'll go to Daryl. Thank you very much for coming. I think this is vitally important. We usually get pretty regular updates from your government relations office. Just a quick point on why. I mean, all of the members here, all of the TAAC members here are active advocates in the disability world, and that does include advocating for positions on policies and budgets up at the Capitol, whether they do it on an individual basis or we as a group decide to support a particular position, and then we can, you know, throw the weight of the committee behind that, again, if it is agreed upon as a group. But it's important to keep updates from what's going on from the Met Council's perspective. So again, you know, we look forward to having you back, and I will give it to Daryl.
As Chair Finley said, each one of us have a obligation and a duty to be as active as we can in our lives and in our community. So many of us do that through a number of ways. And one of the things that I heard you say, Brooke, is that there was some funding for Metro Mobility, whether it's their buses or how about I'm talking about their equipment rather. Their GPSs have not been updated for quite some time, and they've been out of date. They are a sore subject with a number of their drivers, whether it's their drivers that they've had for a while, or whether it's the driver pool that keeps turning over, or whether it's a opt-out service like a for 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 one of their other services. Those GPSs have caused more problems and more incidences than have been reported and actually resolved. I and I just want to know, are there any efforts to give the drivers better tools and better equipment to be able to do their job, whether we have to do it by zones or whether we have to do it by projects? Is there any? What is the timeline on replacing some of those equipment?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Fenley and Vice Chair Paulson. That's a good question. And the question that comes to my mind is whether those technology components that are in our fleet are qualify as a capital expenditure or an operating expenditure. Because when you're dealing with either bond funds or capital investment dollars, there's a lot of restrictions on how you can use that money. One of them is it has to have a long lifespan. And you know, like a building, you're not going to be replacing a building every 2 years, or infrastructure that's meant to last for, you know, decades. And I actually don't know if a GPS system would be part of the capital side of the operations, or the operational side, and that would determine what funding you could use for upgrades. I will ask about that. That's another question that's come up regarding forecasting metro mobility. When we're talking about providing the service, is that going to cover the capital side? Or are we going to use the same tools to provide for the capital side, and the forecast will be adjusted for the operational expenses? So that's a question. I'll try to find more information about it, but it depends on what kind of money can be used for those technological pieces.
And I also want to thank you for your even though it wasn't quite as detailed as I'm used to seeing your reports, or as I like to see the reports, I'm always impressed of the detail that you tend to put in as you continue to come back to a committee. So I guess one thing I wanted to say is I am looking forward to helping the council, particularly in the chair's office, and trying to remove the barriers relating to financial barriers and the ticket verification type thing for fare evasion. I mean, so I'm all on board with that, and I know a couple of our other committee members that may or may not be here today would be on board with that as well. So, I mean, I just want to thank you for your willingness to always come back and always give us really interesting details. And, you know, even though it deals with money and it deals with things that we typically don't really dabble into a lot, it really sets the stage for how we tend to use the service and how we tend to think about the service as we're advocating through our communities. So just saying that, it's a value to have you come and give us the feedback that you give us. So, thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. I like that your confidence in Brooke's attention to detail and you're asking a very detailed question to her that Brooke, you handled very nicely.
That she didn't have the answer to, right? But we're going to develop the answer together. And I guess that's the point, that this committee has value. We have value, and we have friends within the chair's office. We have friends within the legislative office, and it is starting to show. So thank you.
Thank you for the question. It's an interesting one, and it really illustrates that things get complicated even when they're resolved. The implementation brings a whole new set of questions.
Right.
This is David. Are there any more TAAC members who have questions or comments for Brooke? Regarding bonding, regarding supplemental budget? Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Brooke, for coming. Again, we look forward to seeing you back here with more information as numbers come out, as bills start to drop, and as the Metropolitan Council, more importantly, as Metropolitan Council starts to solidify policy positions for the upcoming session.
Thank you again for having me, and I look forward to our next discussion.
All right, moving on. So we have subcommittee reports. I know, Ken, you did send out to the group. You sent out your update. I don't see Ken on anymore. Maybe he can. Oh yes, Ken. If you want to expand on that, you're more than welcome to the blue line extension update. But there's no need to, since you did send out that update. But I will give you just a couple seconds to jump in here if you want. And so just a quick note here. So we have a couple standing subcommittees that focus on particular project offices or new developing projects that are happening. So a member of TAAC would attend the meetings that project has and then report back to us, but also bring our perspective to those groups. And we have Ken, who does the blue line, and then next Chris Bates, who I don't think is on, but I will still give him a chance. Chris Bates does the green line extension or Southwest LRT, and then Daryl does Gold Line and Rush Line. And before, when the Orange Line was still in the planning phase, it's full on being built right now. But when that was in the planning phase, I sat on that committee. But since they're done designing and now they're just building, we took that off the agenda. But Daryl, if you would like to take a second to talk about Golden Rush Line, you can. I know you send out updates too.
Having said that, Chair, did you attend the Gold Line, the Orange Line opening just a couple weeks ago? That was amazing opening. I did not attend it physically either, but I mean, if you've seen our Twitter accounts and our social media, it was attended pretty well. So I do serve on the Gold Line Committee, and you did see my reports. My reports were submitted early as well. They were not reports. They were just basically copied articles from the Gold Line publication, which they featured Maplewood particularly in their article, and they also asked me a couple questions as the co-chair of the Community and Business Advisory Committee that is part of the Gold Line and the Gold Line expansion. And then also I will be transitioning, hopefully in the near future, to what we used to call the Rush Line, which is now the Purple Line, which the feds just recently gave that dedicated Purple Line to them about a month ago or so, a little over a month ago. But they have gotten their go ahead to enter into their next phase. So that means their environmental study and their impact studies have been approved and have been cleared. So having said that, my reports should stand as they were sent. And if there's any questions, I'll stand for questions, or sit rather.
Thank you very much, Daryl, for that. Next, would someone from the bus priority seating TAC work group mind just jumping in and giving a quick overview of what it is? If not, I'm happy to do it.
Chair, would you like me to do that one as well?
Please.
That priority seating work group has, I believe, I've seen the finished video. I've not seen where it's gone out publicly yet, other than when I've distributed or when it's been distributed privately. So I'm not sure the particular detail on that, but I would say that when we seen the final edits and the actual video itself, it is really well done. And I do know internally they are very thankful that TAAC members were able to take part, wanted to take part. It was very much opportunity for TAAC members to show the real need for accessibility on public transit. Even though it was a short kind of introduction to some driver training and some things like that, it really, I mean, even people in the general public, if they were watching us the day we made those videos, they wanted to know what was going on, and they want, some of them already knew about priority seating, and then it was just the thing to do when somebody asked for it or needed it. And some people didn't know that was an issue at all. They assumed that there were more than 2 seats, or they assumed that there was another option. They didn't know. So to do this and to do it in cooperation with Metro Transit was a big thing, and it was a huge thing for a committee to be a part of. So I hope we share the video at some point to our committee. It's only the training piece is probably longer than the 2-minute video or 3-minute video, but I mean, we should be able to share it.
Jasmine.
Go ahead, Sam.
I did want to step back to say I did see it put in the Connect letter in November. I myself was really happy to have done it, but my understanding is that there were 2 different videos created. Doug can correct me if I'm wrong, but I was a bit disappointed because in the Connect newsletter, which is extremely public, there was no audio description on that release. So I'm not sure why that was released with no audio description. I think there was a mistake made with communication, but I have questions about how we can eliminate that happening again, because everything that is in regards to something like this should definitely be audio described and should definitely not leave the building before people understand what needs to be, where it needs to go, and that it needs to be, especially on the public where there's so many people that have disabilities, audio described. And I'm hoping that we get back to the table and understand how the rest of this marketing is going to play out. So that's my comments. Thank you, Daryl.
You bet. Thank you, Sam, for that note as well. I mean, I do think that's very valuable. And definitely I missed that as well, because I believe the audio description was out in the first version that we looked at, right? And then if I'm not mistaken, I did see this video go out under their YouTube some YouTube channels under the Met Council. So I know the video is out there and it's being played. I just really would like to know how this video is being implemented in their training and how it's being used particularly, because if it's just being used publicly to make us look good or to make some of the drivers feel good and to remind some of the bad drivers to do to do something different, I think that's missing the boat as to why we put this together to begin with. So I do think, to your point, Sam, this is an opportunity for us to go back to the table and say, okay, tell us, where this sits and what you're doing with it.
I would hope that the next connection letter would have the audio described one in it. As I said, we viewed the one that was audio described, but the one that was released was not audio described. So I'm not sure where the audio described one is or is being released now. Perhaps we could get an answer.
Thank you, Sam. Did you have a response, Daryl?
No, I will look to get you an answer by the next meeting.
So,
Mr. Chair?
yes, go ahead, Eric. I think you might have.
Yes, sir. So I did provide a link in the chat, but quick Google search, I found the two videos. Metro Transit accessibility. Kind of halfway down, I guess. One location.
Yeah, it does look like it is, yeah, right on Metro Transit's website. But there is a link in the chat. Sam, I know you're calling in, so you can't follow that link, but I'm happy to email it to you. And I think you're right, Sam. I think it was a communication error. I mean, somebody didn't check the right box and attach the wrong video to that communication. But I think if we're ready for it in February, we could have a discussion on it, show the video, and maybe have a little debrief to improve the process going forward.
I'm hoping that the newsletter gets the audio described video in it, since the not audio described video is in it last month, in November, I believe. So hoping that they just have the audio described one in there if they're going to put it in at all in regards to this. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Does anybody else have questions or comments on this? And Rachel, if you want more of a background on this, I know that it might be a bit of a fire hose here because you don't have a lot of the history. I'm happy to do it offline or even give a quick description of what led up to this right now because we have a few minutes. But I'm more than happy to do something a little more historical with you if you want. Did anybody else have comments or questions on the priority seating video campaign that we've been working on for, gosh, a year now? No, all right, we will move on. I have just a couple things to talk about in my report, mainly just updates from last month and also reminding folks about a couple of the fun things that we plan to do this year, and I'll be looking for support from all of you. The first one being 2022 is the 30th anniversary of this committee, of the Transportation Accessibility Advisory Committee, and a pretty good number of you volunteered to be on the celebration task force, we'll call it that. More information to come on that. Rachel, you're more than welcome to jump on that if you want. One thing that we've been trying to do on TAAC over the last, I'd say, year or two is to really to form subcommittees or work groups or task forces that allow TAAC members to dive deeper into some of the work that we do. Deeper being that, we meet for 2 hours a month, 10 or 11 times a year. That's not a lot of time to get some of this work done. So I think it's important to have a little more time devoted. Again, all voluntarily. I'm not going to force people to sit on any of these groups, but folks tend to really feel more than happy to jump in and do this extra work. And this priority seating campaign video, I think, is one of the more awesome little work groups that we put together over the last year. All right, and then let's see, we'll move on to public comment. Anybody from the public want to make a comment? Andy, go ahead. Our resident public.
Yeah, I just needed to notify the TAAC ahead of time here. It was decided this morning that we are going to re-roll out the request to riders to please consider canceling non-essential trips. Again, it's on the rider to decide what is or is not an essential trip, and it's on the rider to then choose to cancel, of course, if it is non-essential. But we're just asking for it again on the phone message when people call in, and through an email for people on the email listserv, and on a website, because the driver pool is just currently totally decimated from this latest COVID variant. And when you combine that with the fact that we were further behind on vacancies for drivers than we've ever been in the history of Metro Mobility, those two things have combined to really hinder the service in a pretty major way. So both for people's safety, as this variant proves to be so transmittable, and for the protection of the service for people who are really relying on it for essential trips, we're just asking, or going to be asking again, for people to cancel any non-essential trips they have, however they may define that.
Thank you very much, Andy, for that update. Any other members from the public that would like to comment? Member comment. Anybody? So TAAC members have an opportunity to comment now. Go ahead, Sam.
Oh, I just want to thank Andy for help with the changing something on the Metro Mobility, because I had been painfully dealing with a change that they made in regards to some construction that was happening at the Minneapolis Public Library downtown, and where they were stopping it with a Nicolette, and you were having to give much more descriptive things to make sure the driver came up and found you. And that is done now, and Andy helped me get it switched so they can actually take you to the Hennepin entrance now very quickly. So thank you, Andy. I appreciate that. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Sam. I'll use member comment to read Guthrie's post in the chat. So he wrote it here, and this is regarding the video rollout, the issue that Sam raised, that the non-audio described version was put in the newsletter last month. So Guthrie said conversations with staff, including guidance going forward, have occurred between him, Guthrie, and the video creators, so this does not happen again. So I had a feeling it was taken care of internally, and I'm glad, Guthrie, that you have confirmed that now for committee members, that mistakes like that don't happen moving forward, because all communications, and the Met Council knows this, and we know this full well, but all communications do need to be fully accessible. Daryl, did I see your hand up for member comment?
Yes, I remember comment. I want to thank Rachel very much for being on the committee and so forth. And I also wanted to let the committee know that I did bring up issues relating to the family bathroom that is in the transit center of the Mall of America. They have since taken down the sign that required them to leave that open during business hours. So you don't even know that it's a bathroom there anyway. So I am very irritated, and I would love to go with David or someone from the council to let them know, or even if we just do a Zoom call with them, to let them know that just because you took down a sign and now nobody knows it's there, doesn't mean that you've solved your issue. Because I still know it's there. So unless you're going to permanently close it and take it out of there, it needs to be there, because that's where the metro mobility drop off is as well. That's where the waiting area is as well. So they need that space with their companion or their PCA, if they do need that space, that needs to be available to them. So I wanted to let you know that that did happen. I've seen it over the holidays. I did not want to make an issue about it because I was out there during the gun incident and the lockdown. So that was pretty scary. We didn't get to move around too much, but we're safe. I was on second floor. It happened on third floor. We're good.
Well, I'm glad you're safe, and thank you for the update on the bathroom, even though it's not an update in the right direction.
I figured it was gonna happen that way. I don't know if you heard me when I was telling you this last month. I said what they're gonna do is they'll just take the sign down.
Yeah, essentially eliminating it as a restroom, which doesn't surprise me at all. I'll also take member comment here to respond to Andy's good point here, to thank John Clark. He served on the committee for, I think, about 3 years, and he always brought a fun philosophical perspective to the work that we did. But it'll be sad to not have him here anymore. And his service was definitely noticed. I think we gained a lot from him. Any other member comment? Otherwise, we can maybe end a little bit early, which is very rare.
Oh yeah, we did get done a little early. Why did John not reapply? What happened? I guess I missed that.
We can chat offline if you want.
Okay.
If nobody else has anything to say, I'm more than happy to adjourn the meeting about 16 minutes early, and you can have some of your day back, folks.
Well, I gotta jump in another meeting in about 10 minutes anyway, so it gives me enough time to do what I need to do. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Chair Finley. Thank you, Metro Transit staff, Met Council, anybody else that's listening and wants to listen in the future. Thank you. Have a nice day.
I think that's a great note to adjourn on. We are adjourned.
So move.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.